Welcome to Childcare Rockstar Radio. I am your host, Kris Murray. Childcare leaders around the globe are breaking through challenges, leading the way in innovation, testing new best practices, and impacting children and families in a much more powerful and positive way than ever before. Each week, join me for interviews with early childhood leaders and experts that will leave you inspired to become the next childcare rockstar. Now, let's go. This is Childcare Rockstar Radio, episode 132, featuring Rachelle Calina. Hey folks, welcome back to the podcast. I am Kris Murray, your host, and I am thrilled to see you and have you hear me and see me out in the world of the Ethernet and the interwebs. Welcome to Childcare Rockstar Radio. We have an amazing guest today, Rachelle Calina from Honest Buck Accounting. She is the founder of that fantastic early learning accounting and financial metrics firm. And we're going to dive in today to all things money and financial and develop with you and for you some financial benchmarks and best practices that are going to rock your world. And indeed, that is why I titled this episode, Money is a Reflection of What You Feel You're Worth. And that is one of the things that Rachelle commented as she's working with early learning leaders and owners, primarily owners, and a lot of multi-site location owners, that no matter your size, no matter your capacity and number of schools, a lot of our industry owners, business owners, entrepreneurs struggle with what you feel you're worth and how to price yourself and how to add value and how to understand your profit margin and how to dive into the financial benchmarks in our industry to determine and forecast where your financials are going to land. And so that is what we dive into here on the podcast today. So I would like to thank our sponsor for today's podcast, which is Constructive Playthings. The new school year is around the corner. Are you ready? Whether you're starting from scratch or refreshing your classrooms, the team at Constructive Playthings is standing by to help. With many new items available across all categories, along with back-to-school specials, now is the perfect time to take a look. STEM center play, social emotional resources, or even new items for your light table center. Whatever you need, Constructive Playthings is ready to point you in the right direction. Focus on what matters and let Constructive Playthings help with the rest. Check them out for all your back to school needs at constructiveplaythings.com/CCSC. And that stands for Child Care Success Company. Constructiveplaythings.com/CCSC. And go there and check them out. Get them to help you. All right, everybody. I want to share with you a little bit about what's going on for me here as we dive in towards September and official back to school post Labor Day season. This podcast episode is releasing in late August, and summer is coming to an end. I hope that you've had an incredible summer, and I hope that you are geared up for fall and finally feeling, like many of our clients in the academy, that you are close to fully staffed, close to fully enrolled, and getting things back to humming along in the culture of your schools and in the operational aspects, as well as, of course, marketing and enrollment and all things hiring. And those are many of the topics that we're going to be teaching and diving into with a fresh look on the changing face and the changing world of early learning here in the fall of 2022. And big picture, we're continuing to try to help you identify your A players and your B players and hire to your core values and hire the best staff possible. And also continuing to improve the overall quality and leadership of your school, which all ties back to hiring and teacher performance. And so we'll be diving into that deep at the Nashville Child Care Success Summit event. And my friend Rachelle Calina, who you're going to meet here in about 1 minute here on the podcast, is going to be at the Child Care Success Summit. And she's one of our awesome exhibitor partners in the exhibit hall, which we're going to be decking out in a Music City theme for our Nashville Summit. And this is the first time that we've ever gone to Nashville. And I want you to make sure you have your tickets because we are getting close to closing the doors. So if you still have not purchased your tickets and you've been on the fence, ticket sales are still coming in and we are still on our summer deal. So it is about to close. I think we have a handful of seats in the ballroom. My team tells me that we are about to go on wait list at the summit in terms of having the ballroom at full capacity. So this is your last chance. It'll be the last time I'm mentioning it this fall or here in 2022 to join us in Nashville. And you can learn more all about that at childcaresuccesssummit.com. childcaresuccesssummit.com. It is the world's largest conference, 3-day conference plus exhibit hall. Incredible sponsors there to help you with tools to help solve your business pains and get rid of those pain points and help you be more successful in all things in your childcare business. So hope to see you there in Nashville. Okay, we're going to just dive on in to the episode all about money, profit, financial benchmarking, measuring your money metrics, and how to use simple math and forecasting tools to understand how to drive more profit into your business and all the different key indicators that you should be measuring with regard to your financial success in your business. And that is what Rachelle Calina's expertise is. Honest Buck has been a podcast sponsor on and off for several years here. And we have so many people and so many clients in our industry using Honest Buck that I felt compelled to bring Rachelle on the podcast to meet you and share all of the good things that she's doing for our clients in common. So let's dive on in without any further ado. Childcare Rockstar Radio, episode 132, featuring my friend, Rachelle Calina. Let's go. Welcome, everybody, back to the podcast. This is Kris Murray, and I am thrilled today to bring you a friend and colleague who is really smart in the childcare field. Rachelle Calina, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am fantastic. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Where are you right now?
I am in Bella Vista, Arkansas. So for those who are not familiar, it's about 20 minutes north of Bentonville, which is Walmart headquarters. So yeah.
Yes, we all have heard many things about Bentonville, Arkansas from a business. Yeah.
I will say, a lot of people, when I tell them I live in Arkansas, I get this sort of sideways look like, what? But then you're like, dude, you know how much money the Waltons have put into this area? It is
right.
Well developed.
Yeah, it's not the boonies, is what you're telling me. Yeah, no. Awesome. Tell us a little bit about what you do, Rachelle, in the field of early learning.
Yeah, I am a CPA who focuses primarily on early childhood education businesses. We work with, preschools, daycare centers. We work with dance schools, music schools, really anything that has to do with education. I've had a lot of experience. I've been a CPA for 12 years. Started my career at Deloitte as an auditor. Left that because I realized I liked doing better than I liked reviewing. And then, did a couple of corporate gigs, and I was an accounting manager at Expedia. And after a few years, I just decided I want to do something that was actually helping people with my knowledge. And so I started Honest Buck, and now this is where we are. And I do feel like I'm actually helping people. So it's an extremely rewarding career, I would say.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So you founded Honest Buck Accounting, and that is also, I think, your web address, right? Is it honestbuckaccounting.com?
honestbuck.com. Yep.
honestbuck.com. Very good. And it is rewarding. Mm-hmm. You and I have that in common, that we're consultants, coaches, people who are serving
Yes,
childcare people, which is very
exactly.
rewarding. So I
Serving
love,
people who are serving people. So
yeah. And most of all children, but yes, I love that. What is your home life like? What do you enjoy doing in your personal time? Any hobbies or things that you would like to share?
so I'd love to travel. I love to volunteer. In pre-COVID, I kind of mixed those two things together. I used to go do global village trips with
Oh,
Habitat
wow.
for Humanity. So I've built houses in Chile, in Portugal, in Nigeria, in Fiji. So I've gotten to see a lot of the world and like again feel like I'm serving people in the best way I can. I don't believe that they've opened that back up, since COVID. So that's kind of been on hold. But now I spend most of my free time at the lake, paddle boarding, just swimming around, that sort of thing, and
Nice.
spending time with my cats.
Yeah. And how many cats do you have?
For
Wow.
and they're
And a
all
little,
the same age.
they're all the same age. Oh my goodness. A little known fact that Rochelle and I both have pets named Simba. One of her cats is named Simba, and my dog is named Simba.
Yeah.
So it's a fun fact.
Yes.
Are there any other fun facts that you would like to share about
Um,
yourself?
I don't know about fun fact, but I would say I think one thing that people don't necessarily know about me is that I actually wanted to be a teacher.
Hmm.
When I got out of high school and I was starting college, that was my actual major was education, and I took a intro to teaching class, and I realized it was more than just showing up and talking,
Mm-hmm.
and quickly decided that it really wasn't the right fit for me because I know that I'm an introvert and I know how kind of tired, constantly having to interact with people, with children. And I just kind of realized it wasn't the right fit for me. And so it took a while to get back to it. But again, that's why I feel like I really like serving people who are in the education industry because it really was something I wanted to do. It was just not something that I think I was meant to do.
Yeah. But you're impacting it through the leaders that you're serving on the financial side. So I love that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Super cool. So let's dive into talking about the financial topic. And you mentioned the pandemic. And so let's talk a little bit about what I'm kind of calling the post pandemic era
Mhm.
in our economy and in the world of early learning. It was a real wake up call for a lot of people. And I would love your opinion on how we're going to dive all into financial best practices. But, coming out of the pandemic, what are you seeing or what have you seen over the last 6 to 12 months that has happened with our industry with regard to finances?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And there's been a lot of things going on. I mean, I think first and foremost, the thing that, we're dealing with that in some ways is a blessing and a curse is a lot of this government grant money coming.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've every state is doing something different for sure. But it's a blessing because for those who are trying to expand, it's giving them the means to do that without going into debt, which is amazing, or being able to build up their center, get it into a place where they feel a little bit more comfortable charging the rates that they need to be charging, um, or adding to curriculum, things like that. But on the other side, there are those that are like, that are getting this money and they're saying, well, I'm not really ready to start another center because I can't staff the center I have now. Or they're saying that they don't really need to make any improvements to their center, like it's already exactly what they want. And so there's kind of this huge tax bills that are coming if they aren't able to spend that money, and
Yeah.
that's something we're trying to address. And I would say, to that, I mean, definitely if you have the ability, be investing in your center, be investing in expanding or upgrading or whatever that looks like. but, also with what we would call an economic a forecast that we don't really know, make sure that we're putting back some money as well and be okay with paying taxes on it if it's going to mean that you feel a little bit more confident going into the next 2 years. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The whole stabilization grant puzzle is, it's a blessing, like you said, a blessing and a curse. And then there's some states that haven't actually released any
Yeah.
grant
Yeah.
monies.
California hasn't released anything.
Yeah.
And I've got a client in San Francisco where everyone evacuated, where people still haven't gone back to the office, that is just truly struggling. And it's really heartbreaking to see that California hasn't done anything because,
Right.
and she can't really do anything because it's not, the kids aren't there.
Right. Wow. So, the, there was another question that came in my head about that. Oh, so 16,000 childcare centers or more, but according to childcareaware.org, 16,000 childcare centers closed their doors during the pandemic, and that does not include home-based providers.
Right.
So, with that, the reason why most of those centers closed is because either exhaustion, burnout, but more so, I find, is that they were just living on the margin. In other words, their business was so tight on profit margin, or it was in the red,
Yeah.
that when the pandemic hit, everything blew
Well,
up, right?
I recently watched a news story. I don't remember exactly. I think it may have been PBS who did it, that kind of deep dived into sort of the balancing act we have here, where parents think that childcare is too expensive, but childcare centers aren't really making money. You know
Right.
what I mean? And essentially, the statistic that they threw out there was that the average profit margin on a childcare center is 1%.
Wow.
So when exactly. And so when you get hit with a catastrophe that shuts you down, I mean, if you aren't well, if you don't have money in the bank account, you're not going to make it.
Yep.
And that's, again, I think that we've all learned a lot of lessons over the last couple of years. And I personally don't think that, when people keep asking me about, oh, what about this recession that's coming? I don't think it's going to be anywhere near what we saw in 2008. Recessions happen every 10 years.
Right.
And that the reason that 2008 was called the Great Recession is because it was more intense than any
Right.
other recession, right? So,
Right.
but that's the most recent. So that's where people kind of keep going back to.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's going to be like that at all. But at the same time, that's why I'm saying, like, well, we don't really know what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
we have, as this excess cash is coming in, make sure that, you're putting it aside for what may happen.
Yeah.
At least in the best of times, I would say have 3 months worth of expenses in the bank. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
we're usually working towards. But in uncertain times, have 6 months.
Yep. Yep. That's a great rule of thumb. I have the same guideline that I coach too, which is the 3-month rule, but I like the 6-month rule. Anything right in there, guys, you've got to have it locked away, put away so that you can survive. And the 1% profit margin
That's
is
terrifying.
crazy. Because in the academy with our clients, the average is more like 10 to 12%.
Right.
And then there are people doing 18, 20, 25% profit
Oh, yeah.
margin too.
And it's totally possible. But I think that one of the things, when I notice there, I guess I would say there are two types of, I mean, there's obviously more, but I would say, like, if we were going to really generalize, there's two types of people that I come across in the childcare industry. And there's those that know their value and those that don't know their value.
Wow.
And the ones that know their value, I mean, yeah, they might comparison shop to the center next door and see what they're charging, but that doesn't mean that's what they're going to charge. They're going to look at what their actual costs are, and they're going to make sure that they build in a comfortable margin for themselves. Those that don't know their value are literally going to only look at the people next door and try to be down, lower by about $5 to $10 a week. And
Yep.
And that's why they can't make money, because
That's
they're
right.
not considering what their actual costs are
Yeah.
and how important they are to the parents in the community.
Yeah. And if you communicate your unique value and figure out what features and benefits set you apart from the centers down the street, and then you work with your parents and they love you, they're going to want you to charge more so you can stay viable and open and have high quality.
Exactly.
So, yeah, you're actually doing the kids a disservice
Yeah.
by not knowing your value and charging what you need to charge. So, I love that.
Yeah.
It's a huge writer downer for so many listeners. So with regard to challenges around financial management, we work a lot with smaller daycare centers that have had their head in the sand around money. And then, of course, we work with multi-site people that own 5, 10, 15 schools. And when you get to that place where you're scaling your business, you have got to have, obviously, you've at this point done the work to really kind of get your financial house in order, usually.
Usually, not always.
Yeah, not always. So why do you think that it is challenging for childcare owners and leaders to be confident with their money and to have an eyes wide open approach versus a head in the sand approach in mindset?
Well, I think there's a lot of different factors, but again, if we're looking at the big ones, I think one is kind of going back to just not believing the value that you create. And I think if you're not looking at the value you're creating, you're really not going to be focused on the financial like repercussions of all of that. But I also think, in general, childcare businesses or childcare owners are they're heart-driven people who care about their children that they're helping. They're
Yeah.
not financial people,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying they can't be both, but just in general, that's what I found is they're people who really want to help, their community. The financial part is just not always within their wheelhouse.
Right.
And that's really like kind of why we focused on childcare is because, we do understand the financial parts of it. And we found ways to be able to visualize the data for people who are not financially, fluent, in a way of kind
Mhm.
of putting it into a visual, you know, uh,
Representation of the
yeah,
data.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly, and that really does help, I've got people, who will, they'll have their financial statements and they'll sit there breaking it out at like these crazy detailed levels, they'll like have categories for certain vendors instead of like overall categories, or they'll be breaking out like, different expenses for different owners, like in different, and like I've,
Right.
seen like 150 to 200 lines. And I'm
Right.
like, and I understand you think that this is helping you manage your business, but I can't read this and I've got 15 years of experience. Like,
Right.
how are you reading this? And so it really is kind of coming back to having these dashboards where we can like, look at things high level and then go, oh, this is out of whack. Let's deep dive into this number and really get in there. And I think that works a little bit better than trying to like use your income statement as a financial like,
Right.
detailed management sort of thing.
Well, yeah. So it actually gets back to the kind of financial 101, understanding how to read a P&L or financial statement, having it set up with the chart of accounts so that it is going to give you actionable data, not just a big fat mess.
Right.
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 And too much detail will just boggle the mind. So it's like, well, no wonder you don't want to look at your numbers because there's way too many lines and detailed accounts on here. We need to summarize them into the key categories of expenses,
Yeah,
labor,
exactly.
payroll,
Exactly.
and anything that's labor related, anything related to your facility,
Mhm.
anything related to classroom supplies, anything related to food. That's pretty much it,
Yeah.
like we could
Yeah.
just get into maybe professional services, and then talk a little bit about that visual component. So do you have like a tool that you use to take the data and like put it into charts and stuff?
Yeah,
How do
so
you
we
do
use a
that?
couple of different tools. So one is we use a system called Fathom HQ, which I really love. It gives, it takes the information from, QuickBooks Online or Zero or whatever system it is you're using. And, you do a little back end work to get things kind of to tell it, hey, this is a fixed cost. This is a variable cost. This is a non-recurring cost kind of, you give it a little bit
Yeah.
of detail, and it can show you a lot of KPIs, but it can also, we use it for break even analysis to be able to see how much are fixed costs, how much are variable costs, what do you need to be break even. We use it for being able to do what we call the goal seek. So if we're like, hey, this is where we are right now, we'd like to be at 20% profit margin, we put that in, and it'll tell us, well, if you want to do that, you got to raise your your enrollment by X amount, or you got to raise your prices by X amount, or you got to cut your cost by X amount. And we can kind of like, okay, well, what if we raise enrollment by 20% and then we raise tuition by 15%? Then, what does that do? And it'll kind
Yeah.
of give us like that analysis, which is really very helpful. And
Yep.
then, if you have multiple centers, we're able to consolidate that into one report for all the centers and be able to show that. So for banking purposes and whatnot, it's way, way easier to show them the full picture. But then we've also, on top of that, we've created our own management dashboard where we're looking at things that, some things are in QuickBooks, some things aren't. So, we look at like the revenue and how it's trending, but we also look at like how many kids are enrolled, how many have dropped, how many have added, what is your percentage of payroll and rent compared to revenue, because that needs to be below 70%, and if it's not, why is it not?
Right.
And all of those sorts of things. And that's something that like we'll share with the client so that they can go back and see it whenever they need to.
Yeah.
And so between those two tools, we feel like we've done a really good job of being able to give them like the key highlights and being able to identify when there are anomalies really fast.
Yeah. Love, love, love that. That's super powerful. I love that you're helping them do the break even analysis, because we help them with that too in coaching. And one of our coaches, Coach Ben, is kind of our financial expert on the team. But to try to actually dive in and do break even analyses for 300 clients is nearly impossible to do them as a one by one. So I love, like basically you're an extension of what we're teaching, because then if you guys want Rachelle to actually do the break even, then she can pull your data in and actually do it for you. Because I ask all the time, Rachelle, well, how many kids do you need to enroll to do X, Y, or Z? If you want to join this program, or if you want to create a new playground for you, what do you have to get in income? How many more kids do you have to enroll to be able to do that? So
Right.
really powerful ways of knowing. And then I ask like, well, are you actually covering all your fixed expenses with your current enrollment? And they're like,
well, and to that point, just knowing
yeah.
how much is your fixed expenses is really powerful. Because, let's say worst case scenario happened and we had another pandemic, and you have, how much still is going to go out the door, even if you were to like stop staff, even if you were to, just kind of cut everything you possibly can, what's still going to go out the door? And do you how much cash do you have to cover that?
Right. Yeah. Well, your monthly nut, what does it cost to keep the lights on?
Right.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So I love that. So yeah, thanks for the intel on the Fathom HQ. I have heard of that tool and it sounds amazing. So I'm definitely going to check that out. Let's talk about, you mentioned the benchmarks. So the payroll plus rent needs to be at or below 70% of income, of revenue. And I love that, because that's a little bit of a different twist on what we usually guide, which is that payroll as a standalone should be, less than 55. But when you're adding the rent piece, those are the two biggest chunks. So, but that will get you to a place where you're starting to be in a 10, maybe 15% profit margin.
Exactly. And the reason we used to break it out, separately, but what we found, and I, every owner is going to think about things differently, but what we found is that we have some owners where maybe, they own the building, they're done paying off the mortgage, and, they want to pay a little bit more to their staff. Like they want to,
Right.
be able to do that. And, and I've got a few clients that are in that realm. And so what we'd look at is, again, those two combined, because, if your rent is too high, really the most meaningful place to cut would be staff.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of figure that out. And that's why I put those two together.
That's great. And then also just that gets back to lease renegotiation or refining your mortgage or whatever you got to do to get those numbers in line.
Exactly.
So that's really smart. And also I have seen programs that are definitely top heavy with staff, especially on the admin side.
Oh, yeah.
And they're looking at 80, 86, even 90% is going to payroll, but maybe they're a not for profit. So maybe they have their building might be free, in that case, they might be running out of a church. The church pays for the building. Yeah. So they can spend a little bit more on payroll. So that's cool. Let's talk a little bit about advice that you give that might be hard for people to hear. So do you ever have to have any real talk with clients, and what are some of the pieces of advice that you most commonly give, or what are some things that you find people just really struggle with?
I would say, I think the biggest thing I struggle with is I'll get clients who will kind of, want to come in and work with us, but their first thing they say is like, I need to get my taxes down. And while I completely understand like not wanting to pay taxes, like the answer is like, we'll look at like, are you maximizing your tax structure? Are you, making sure that the QBI, the qualified business income deduction is being used? Are you taking advantage of work opportunity tax credits?
Yeah.
Are you doing, all of these things? We'll definitely look at that. But what I kind of have to tell people is, you want to pay taxes. Paying taxes means you're making money.
Yeah.
If you're not paying taxes, you are not making money. And, I think, and that's one thing, again, people will come and be like, I just need to get my taxes down as low as possible. And my answer is like, well, that is a tax strategy, but that's going to limit your future growth. Because
Right.
if you're not showing income, nobody's going to loan to you.
Right.
There's, you have very little chance of being able to grow. So, I have to tell people that you got to find that happy medium. You have to find that place that you feel comfortable. I mean, do you want to give the IRS $300,000 because you made $1 million? Probably not.
Right.
But, maybe you don't need to make $1 million if you don't want to pay that. I mean, that's just really what it comes down to. But, I think unfortunately there's this sort of belief that like, a good tax lawyer can make all the income or all the taxes go
All the tax go away. And that's
like, well, kind of. But again, that it's going to limit what you're able to do in the future.
Yeah.
Showing almost no income. And I'm not just talking about a center. I'm talking about if you want to buy the beach house in Florida, if you want to invest in a different business, if you want to be able to do any of these things. So I feel like that's usually where I kind of butt heads with clients a little bit more than any other area. But really, when we're working with somebody, it usually means that they're ready to be on track. And so, making sure that they have the cash in the bank that they need to have that 3 months, making sure that they're looking at their overtime, making sure that they're looking at, their other payroll expenses, making sure they're doing all of those things. They're usually on board for making those changes that need to happen. So,
right. Cool. Yeah. I mean, one tax strategy is simply owning your buildings and depreciating them is probably one of the biggest. But yeah, it's not like a great tax accountant is going to make all your tax go away. it's
Because I
just,
mean, I was gonna say, if they make all your tax go away, that's great.
God,
They made all
can
of
I have
their
more water?
income go away.
So, I will share, there is one magical strategy that makes all your tax go away, and that is something called an ESOP.
Oh.
So the employee stock ownership plan program in this country that was enacted by Congress in 1986 or something
Mhm.
allows small businesses who become at least 51% employee owned to be tax free if you're an S corp. So
Mhm.
that's what we did.
Oh.
So I sold my company to my employees. Thank you. And it became tax free. So I don't pay any money to Uncle Sam. So that's kind of cool. I mean, I personally have to, but
Mhm.
we
It doesn't
at the
all
company
whatever
level,
income doesn't flow through to you.
correct.
Nice.
So that's kind of cool. So for those of you that want to check that out and learn more about that, I thought I would just add that little
Yeah.
nugget in
Yeah,
there.
definitely.
Cool. So where are you headed? What are you most looking forward to for the remainder of 2022?
Um, Honestly, I'm what I'm looking forward to is getting back into going to conferences. I know that sounds like a little silly, but like we used to be really big fans of going to QuickBooks Connect every year, and then
Mm-hmm.
that's been virtual for the last 2 years. Yeah, 2 or 3 years. And so, being able to go to QuickBooks Connect this December and like get have a staff uh, kind of retreat there, be able to like spend time with them and learn. And then, of course, we're going to be going to the Child Care Success Summit in Nashville. And so, like, almost the whole team is going to that. So,
Great.
really looking forward to being able to kind of get out there and socialize and
Yeah.
learn and all of that good stuff again.
Yes, I am very much looking forward to that as well. Very much looking forward to Nashville and having more in-person connections with everybody, including yourself and your team. And I'm so glad that you are coming to the event.
Yeah,
Super
me
fun.
too.
Woo, we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yes.
Um, I mean, I have to say, a QuickBooks conference sounds like it would kind of be really boring compared to our conference. I don't know, Rachelle. I'm just calling it out there. A bunch of accountants getting together, but you know,
What I will say is the training that they do is actually it's very interesting. A lot of times it'll be like people who have apps in the ecosystem,
okay,
kind of like showing like
that's
how their
cool.
apps work and things like that,
Right.
which is really nice. But I mean, last time we went, they had things because it's for both accountants and actually like business owners
Business
as
owners, right?
well. So they have obviously like here's how to price yourself kind of thing for accountants. But then I think I also had attended a how to write your first book kind of
Wow.
like
Okay.
talk, which was like really interesting. And so,
Cool.
you're not kind of stuck doing the accounting side or like the business owner side. So you can kind of mix and match in the different
Yeah.
like areas you go into. And the last time we went, my employees were very excited that Ashton Kutcher was there.
Oh, hey.
And yeah, so that was a huge hit.
Yeah. I'll go for that. That's fantastic. No, yeah. I was just teasing you about the accountant. I was
I
making
know.
it a classic accountant joke.
Oh no, it's like the quick. I could see if you were talking about like a tax conference.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that would be terrible.
It's okay. You know what? My dad was a CPA. So I
Ah.
come from a background of accounting and CPA, and we still had a lot of fun and a lot of fun energy and cool stuff going on with my dad's company. So I come from that background. In fact, my sister's an accountant.
That's
So
nice.
yeah, so that I think that's also what I'm bringing as a coach is because
Mhm.
I do have a numbers and data proclivity. I'm able to kind of pull that in a gentle way to people
Yeah.
that are not numbers people.
Exactly.
Good. Well, we mentioned your website at honestbuck.com. And is there anything else that you want to share before we close this podcast episode?
I think just, again, going back to, making sure that you're looking towards the future and making sure that you've got yourself a nice nest egg. And, definitely look towards being, making sure that you have your expenses in line with where they need to be per the ratios that we've talked about. And then, like I said, just, I hate to say it, but be excited when you pay taxes. Like,
Yeah.
just because that means you made money. So
Right.
celebrate that.
Celebrate it. It's a win. We're turning the tax mindset around into a win. One other best practice that I always tell my people is that you should be reviewing your monthly financial statements
Mhm.
in the following month, maybe mid-month the following month,
Right.
with your bookkeeper, accountant, financial manager, CFO,
Mhm.
and making sure that you're diving in and you understand what it's telling you. Look at your percentages, look at how you're performing year over year,
Mhm.
those kinds of things every month, so that you're not just,
Absolutely.
you don't just, it's not just like, let's get to the end of the year and then see how we did.
No, and
It's
that's
not.
why we work with clients the
Yeah.
way we do. Like, we only work with clients that we meet with on a monthly basis and talk to them. And one thing I will say, and this is not me trying to sell myself, but if you do have a tax person or bookkeeper who cannot make the time to go over it with you, you do need to find somebody else.
Yep. Yep. Completely agree. Love that. Good. Well, Rachelle Calina, thank you so much from Honest Buck Accounting. I love that you're serving our clients and amazing ECE leaders and daycare owners, and grateful to have you on the podcast today.
So grateful to be here. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. And if you guys want to learn more, of course, go check out Rachelle's website. I highly recommend. We have lots of clients using her. And we will see you in Nashville.
Yep.
And hopefully all the viewers in the audience will be there too. You guys got to get your tickets and join us. It's going to be amazing. And thanks everybody for tuning in to Child Care Rockstar Radio. And we will see you next time. Take care and God bless. Bye-bye.